Why aren't all governors just requiring masks in all states at this point?
Well, they should be, and I think that they will. There's not much that we can do if we're not going to do the sort of population-based mitigation, shutting down businesses, shutting down schools, things like that, to try to control outbreaks and epidemics. And some of these states truly are in epidemics right now. And so there's only a limited toolbox that we have. And one of the things we can do is require people to wear masks, have universal masking. It does cut the rate of transmission. There's enough evidence demonstrating that at this point. So I think you're going to see a lot of governors, a lot of mayors now try to implement that, recognizing that there's not much left in the toolbox short of, universal masking and maybe selective mitigation, selective closures in places where the virus is spreading the most.
How concerned have you been about some of the spiking rates in the last couple of weeks, the last couple of days in particular, and will implementing a requirement to wear masks change direction of those spikes?
You have to be concerned right now when you look at states like Arizona, Florida, Texas, California, South Carolina, Alabama, that the rate of growth in cases is pretty significant. Now, you're not seeing hospitalizations go up significantly in most of those states. Arizona is pressed right now. They have about 40% of their beds in the hospitals filled with COVID patients. Florida hospitals were reporting today, 9 hospitals, large hospitals, reported that their ICUs are full. So you're starting to see some strain on the healthcare system, but there's still excess capacity. But that could start to change going into next week if these cases continue to build, because there's a delay between diagnosis and time to hospitalization. So more of the people who are getting diagnosed now are going to get hospitalized eventually. And the case numbers are going up. And to your question about the masks, the question is it too late? Have we gotten too far down the field in terms of this outbreak for something like that to really have its intended effect to try to quell this? And it might be. We don't know yet. We're going to see. But if they don't aggressively try to enforce masking rules in public places and do tracking and tracing, trying to get people who are sick isolated, try to get more people diagnosed, trace sick contacts, they could very easily lose control of this. The question whether they have yet already, I'm not sure.
All right. Well, it sounds like they should implement those policies. What do we know about the age of those that are getting hospitalized in some of these hotspots? Because if they are indeed younger, as some of the anecdotal evidence presents, then wouldn't you expect lower mortality rates than we saw in the early part of this disease in places like New York?
We're going to see lower mortality rates for sure, because we're getting better at treating this. And also, I think people who are vulnerable, older people, people with pre-existing medical conditions, are protecting themselves better. And we're protecting nursing homes better, for example. If you look at the age distribution in Texas, for example, about 25% of the people who are hospitalized are between the age of 20 and 30. Almost half of the people who are being diagnosed are under the age of 30. So it's a much younger cohort than the first time round, because the older people are doing a better job of protecting themselves. So that's going to reduce hospitalizations. It's going to reduce the death rate as a percentage of the people who are getting diagnosed. But also, we're going to preserve life because we're just better at treating this disease right now. So the death rate will come down. Whether or not that changes the psychology of the virus, people are less worried about it because they see hospitalization rates and death rates coming down. Hard to tell. In some respects, that's a double-edged sword, because if people become more complacent about it, then they'll do less to protect themselves, and that can cause infections to spike again.